Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Franchise Marketing Podcast. Today, I have Craig Jooste from the Local Handyman Group. He is the CEO and co-founder. Craig, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So for those of our listeners who don't know you or the Local Handyman Group, could you give us a brief intro and especially how you began as well?
Sure. So my roots are in franchising, very entrepreneurial. I spent over a decade at a company called 1-800-GOT-JUNK on their leadership team. I think everyone that works there and or leaves there has a special kind of bond with business and franchising. And I know a lot of friends of mine that have started other companies from there. We always said that you got a mini MBA being there. So I loved the home services business. Always wanted a, admired brand that we wanted to build ourselves. My wife and I both actually worked at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Left there, did a couple of consulting gigs, actually worked for BC Lotteries. I was their director of casino operations, which was, great exposure, but a little bit too Crown Corp for me. So from there, my wife and I think, as with anything, you find a missing service or system when you need something yourself. And we were looking for some help. I was commuting into Vancouver from White Rock. My wife said, "Hey, I need this and this done. I'm handy, but I didn't have the time or the want to do it at 6:00 at night coming home." Mm-hmm. And she reached out, couldn't find anyone to do the work. And the one person that was branded and had some exposure online was booked out for 3 weeks, and kind of had that light bulb moment go off. And she said, "We got to do this." And for me and the background, I thought, well, this should be something great to franchise. So started out as a small operation, ran it like a franchise, built the systems out, and we launched 604 Handyman in the greater Vancouver area, which is the area code denoting, it's not the actual phone number, it's the URL, but it makes people feel that, hey, you're part of the community, etc. And then quickly got calls from people through, LinkedIn and friends and family to say, can we do this in Calgary or Regina or London, Ontario? But 604 doesn't make sense. And with that, the Local Handyman Group was essentially born, and I went on a crazy URL buying spree and research for every area code from here to Ontario, which there's a lot of. And we really put the Local Handyman Group as that umbrella kind of brand of pulling together all the local ones. And it's actually quite a pain to have so many brands, but there really is a connection. 306 Handyman, people in Saskatchewan really feel that there's a connection there to our franchise partners. So even though it's a lot of work, it certainly is working for us. And that, in a nutshell, just branding wise, is how we started the Local Handyman Group. And we've grown relatively quickly the last couple of years, from servicing White Rock to servicing 23 cities between here and Ontario.
Very cool. I love that local approach, but on a national scale, and just kind of like taking that kind of grassroots movement. It sounds like you've been growing very organically over the past few years. Is that right?
Yeah, we've certainly, a good franchisee will get you another good franchisee. And we call them franchise partners because they really are a partner in our business. It's it's all of our brand. So we really look at, we've had franchisees buy more territory. We've had some new folks come in. And now we are really looking to position ourselves, even in these, kind of unprecedented times, we're positioning ourselves to really say, how do we put daylight between us and our competitors, which is a lot of Craigslist handymen. There's a few larger brands as well, but how do we do that? And then how do we really drive the business hard over the next, 2-3 years our goal is to essentially, sell out from the West Coast to Ontario, and then decide, what we're going to do with the brand. So.
Totally. So I would love to hear a bit more about that point about, how are you working to set yourself apart, as a group and as a company from these, Craigslist handyman who, there's hundreds, if not thousands of them out there.
Yes. Thousands and thousands. And there's nothing wrong with being a Craigslist handyman. So for us, we look at what's the differentiator. So how do we take kind of an ordinary business and make it a great experience for our customers, and for our franchise partners. So with any franchise system, everyone knows you're getting into a brand and systems. Well, I think our systems help us when we look at online marketing. It's not that competitive in the handyman space. So you'll always have people that are savvy online and know how to work AdWords and social media, etc. But we have very strong systems to say, this is how you do it. So customers' exposure to our brand is consistent. Mm-hmm. The messaging is consistent. Online booking differentiates us. So you can go online, book in real time, availability that a franchise partner sets. The online booking part has really become important during these times because people have liked that contactless, and they can book 2, 3, and 4 hour projects with us online. And obviously anything over 4 hours becomes a little bit more complex. We do, $12,000 jobs and $3,000 jobs. But when they get a little bit bigger, obviously having a conversation now with that person versus a quick online booking. Our brand and the way we're insured. So we have really kind of fallen into a lot more B2B work. So B2C in 2017 was 85% of our business, 15% was B2B, which then grew to 35%, then 45%. And I have a feeling that our B2B is probably going to be 60 to 70% of our business in the coming years, because we look at, Mrs. Smith our customers repeat about 2.5 times a year. So Mrs. Smith, is worth $600-700 a year based on our average job size. But if you get a good property manager, they could give you 40 jobs at the average job. So now all of a sudden this one contact point is worth 12 grand. And that doesn't make them more important or less than Mrs. Smith, because we love all of our customers. Mm-hmm. But if you want to deal with a property manager, you need to be properly insured. You need to have WCB. And that's where that low barrier to entry on the B2C side becomes a higher barrier on the B2B side. And that's where we feel we're really winning. Mm-hmm. All with that, though, keeping in mind that people also need small jobs done, and that, nothing's too small. So to go out to someone's house for 2 hours or 3 hours is as important as that $5,000 fence or $12,000, small mini reno. So yeah, that's how I think is how we communicate, how we position our brand, and then to say to someone, we're insured, we're WCB covered, our people are background checked, so you can feel safe in your home and business. Not that someone's unsafe from a Craigslist handyman position, but we have the paperwork to back what we're doing.
Right. That's really interesting that you've seen a shift more towards the B2B side. Now, was that on purpose, or did that slowly start to happen organically, and then you started funneling more money into it as you saw it take off?
Yeah. So exactly what you said. So it's we looked at it becoming. So we have a couple of franchisees that are hustlers. I love their hustle. And they kind of started working out dealing with property managers and how to scale. And they had some larger territories. And when you look at, any business, so we have a couple of different models. So we have a small market model and a standard model in our franchising. And one is very much an owner operator model, and the other is I want to scale. So I'm going to work in the business for a while, and then I'm really going to work on it and add more handymen and vans, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And to achieve that scale, you need that B2B side, but we fell into it, and then we've now said, hey, we've fallen into it, so let's market there, and how do we talk to these people? How do we do estimates consistently? And so we're still growing in that space, and so are our franchise partners, because they've been used to just dealing with Mr. or Mrs. Smith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a different ball game, but it's certainly, I think, a massive opportunity.
Right. And you brought up a great point about, how do you talk to these B2B point of contacts in a consistent way that really resonates with them. So I'm curious, how have you been able to I'll say, balance that messaging to the B2C consumer and the B2B consumer without alienating either of those groups?
Right. So our website has been very B2C focused, right? We can change the door locks or change out your light fixture, mount your TV, etc. About a year ago, we have a residential, under our services, there's a residential and commercial. And the commercial was really to help us on an SEO level, but also to speak to, hey, realtors, we can come and do the little fixes or kind of neutralize the house from someone who's lived there for 20 years and maybe paint over that faux paint job that was done in 1996 on that accent wall and fix a couple of patches and whatever. So that part is already there, and I think the website really depicts that well.
Mm-hmm.
On the B2B side, we have just slowly started incorporating, additional collateral, and on the website speaking to, here's what we do, here's the areas we work in, so that we can paint that picture for people. And then it certainly is a work in progress. We just, for 604 Handyman, we currently have 4 locations out here. And so people are at different stages of their business, because we have newer franchise partners and ones that have been around for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're trying to find that balance of, the one franchise partner that's been around a little bit longer, it's just second nature in how we communicate with that property manager, strata manager, whatever it may be, and how an estimate's done. And for a newer person, they might come in and approach it in a way that's similar to dealing with a residential client, and all of a sudden there's a bit of a shock, and there's relationships between our franchise partners that everyone wants to keep the brand strong, and we have to find consistency there. So it's actually something just of late that we've been working on to say, hey, it's great that you have a template for this and you have a template for that, but why don't let's have that one template that goes out in regards to an estimate that maybe says, this is how we work, this is how we price, this is what you're going to get. Here's our WCB letter and our insurance, and it's a nice package. So it is a work in progress, because everyone is at different levels, but we are finding that we're putting a lot more commercial systems in place, working with the franchise partners that are really knocking it out of the park on the commercial side.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it sounds like there's a lot of collaborative back and forth rather than that one-way communication of, head office saying to your partners, do this, do this, do this. It's more like, hey, how have you been finding this? Like, what can we learn from you, and share that back and forth?
And I think that's really important. So with One Area Got Junk, 400 or 500 locations, big office, lots of resources. And when it was smaller, there was more back and forth. There still is, because they have a franchise advisory council and all that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We are a very new brand, we're small. And so what I can say to, any new franchisor or newish is, working with your franchise partners is really valuable, but getting a system in place that everyone's going to follow that's how you'll scale. Because I know all of our franchise partners very well. They feel like family to me. That will inevitably change when we have 100 locations, and I might not see that 100th location for a year or 6 months or whatever. So there's always that, because there's different layers you put in your business at a certain level. And so I think it's very important at the beginning to really get a good sense of, where is there a pain and what's the pain reliever, and then putting a system in place for that. And then, but having that system then followed by the new locations. Otherwise, you'd never scale, right? So I think it's super important to listen to what's going on and then make a decision that's best for everyone. Because at the end of the day, you do have to decide what do you feel is right for the brand as the leader and what isn't. So you're not always going to make everyone happy. But at least if everyone knows they had a voice in it, I think there's a lot of value there.
Totally, totally. So I'd love to hear what's been your biggest challenge you faced so far.
Well, April and May this year was, to say the least.
Yeah.
It was gut check time for sure. And I know that there are many other people that also went through that.
Mm-hmm.
I think for us being a smaller system, is just alignment. Everyone operates a little bit differently, right? Everyone has their own ideas. They're coming into a franchise because they're entrepreneurial. And I think our challenge is just getting everyone completely on the same page, or maybe even on the same sentence. We're in the same page. We're in the same book, because I feel we're all very much aligned and love the brand and want to, make our customers happy and grow our business and make money and profit levels be at X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. But I think we can find a bit more alignment in just, everyone on the exact same, this is how we do everything. And that's probably a challenge that everyone will have forever, right? But I think we can do a better job there.
Mm-hmm. We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode. Cool, very cool. Now, you mentioned like SEO, social media, Google Ads. I'd love to hear how you're leveraging like digital media and the internet now to help really scale you out on both a local and national level.
Certainly. So we have, so all of our franchisees have their own social media, so that you really have that community vibe. I told you on our call prior to recording that we're launching a new website at the end of the month. So currently we have a website for each brand. We're consolidating that onto the localhandymangroup.com. Through SEO, you will land on 604 Handyman in Vancouver, 403 Handyman in Calgary or Red Deer, etc. With that, we're going to push harder on the Local Handyman Group's social media. So when we first started, White Rock, South Surrey, 604 Handyman, or Calgary, Airdrie, 403 Handyman, or Langley, 604 Handyman, all had, 604 Handyman, Langley, Fraser Valley, 604 Handyman, Vancouver, YVR, 604 Handyman, Ridge Meadows. And so we want them to have their own context, local flavor and feel. And we give everyone that template so that the Pantones are right on the colors and the logos aren't stretched out and whatever.
Yeah.
And then Local Handyman Group has really been resharing that on a social media strategy. That's now going to change with the new website. Everyone will still have the local flavor, and we'll have one set of social media. Mm-hmm. So our franchisees, we work with them on how to post and what to post. It's great that mom and dad and cousin Eddie are following you on Facebook, but they're likely not going to buy your service. So why do you have a Facebook business page? We have some franchise partners that are very sophisticated on the social media side and some that didn't have their own Facebook page when they started. So there's obviously some set systems we have in place, and how do you build it out? What audience are you growing? And it's so funny on social media when you talk to someone who's not really into it and you're like, yeah, you have to hashtag and at and follow this and like that so that you show up here. And they kind of look at you like, some are old school, and they're like, really? Do I have to? I'm like, it's not a waste of time, because you're going to follow a mommy group in North Vancouver and they're going to see your brand and see it over and over again. And all of a sudden they need handyman services. And who's top of mind? You are, because of following someone and following our strategies, right? So So our social media does very well for us. We do get jobs from it, and that's that differentiating the pretty things of the brand versus it actually driving action. So we leverage social media that way. We take all of our franchise partners through what their monthly ad spend should be on AdWords. Obviously, Google My Business is extremely important because you can have reviews. It helps you rank. And so we kind of explain that if you're on social media and they see you, and then if you're online, even artificially above the fold where you have an ad and you're showing up on Google Maps, all of a sudden it's those kind of 3 or 4 impressions that start adding validity to your brand. And then ultimately you're in the back of someone's head. They might not action it today, but when you have to change 3 light fixtures and you're super busy, you're like, what was that again? Oh yeah, 604 Handyman or 403 or 306, 519. And so we take people through kind of that like customer's journey on the impressions that they see and how we do it. So we have a system for AdWords, we have a system for social media, and then obviously us as the franchisor, it's our job to optimize the site. So we've started doing a lot of services pages, and I told you before it's tough when you have multiple websites and you want to do the same services page and you can't have duplicate copy for good old Google algorithms and you're rewriting the same thing 5 times over. So that'll obviously stop with the new site, but we really want to focus on owning that handyman term in 10 of our, say, key cities, major metros. So that's our job. And then obviously we work with our franchise partners. We've just had the request come in, hey, it's been a couple of years since we've had the collateral out. Let's do a refresh. And that's where we're going to integrate a little bit more of the commercial side of things too. But we're refreshing the site and we're going to refresh the collateral based on, the site and a couple of different things. But the systems are certainly there to say, this is how you take online, their part and our part. This is how you take social media, corporate and franchise partner. This is how you use print. And we don't use a lot of print, but print isn't completely dead. There's a time and a place where you can be very tactical on, in 2001, you might have sent out 10,000 flyers. 2020, you might look at an area and go, I'm going to send postcards out to 5 mailer routes, and it's going to be like 500 and super targeted because we're doing work in this area. So we take all of that and kind of bundle it together in how do I tie this to the area that I'm focusing in? Why am I focusing here? What are the results of what I'm doing? Where are the leads coming from? And then we're able to look at what's your 3-month marketing plan? How does that tie into your revenue forecast? Because, if you're going to spend $200 on marketing, unless you're a really good networker, you're likely not doing 20 grand in revenue the next month, right? You might do 2 or 3. So it's that kind of like, input output that we try and look at.
Cool. And I love the almost like inception-like approach to marketing, where it's kind of like, showing up here, there, and everywhere, especially because you're a very reactionary service, right? Like people aren't going to kind of do a lot of research. It's like, oh shit, my toilet just broke, or like, oh shoot, like the wind blew down my fence. What am I going to do? So I love that always top of mind strategy that you're taking.
Yeah, thank you. And you're spot on with the service. We have a good chat with our franchise partners, and people get busy, but it is very reactionary. So if you don't answer the phone, unless it's a repeat customer, they'll leave you a voice. They know you and they'll say, hi, it's Bob or Peter or whoever. We need this done. Give me a call back. If it's a new customer, they hang up and they dial for dollars until someone answers and someone can help them.
Right.
So with online booking, what's nice is if you're always there, someone will be like, oh yeah, 604 Handyman, put it in. Oh, great. Yeah. Online booking, click. I need 4 hours, click. And it shows, where the availability is, and you can book it in, get your confirmation email, get your reminder before, and it works well. But it is very, very much, you have to be on it all the time, or else it's not that you're not going to be successful, but you're going to leave a lot of money on the table.
Totally. So one question that I always like to ask people on the podcast, and you've kind of answered this earlier on, but what advice would you give someone that's just starting out a franchise?
That on a franchisor level or a franchisee level?
On a franchisor level.
On a franchisor level, I would say set clear systems and expectations from the beginning, because we all want to be best friends with everyone, but it's hard to. We always said, if you're a kid and you can run free and someone puts a fence around you, you're going to freak out, right? If you always played in an area that was fenced, it's normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think really trying to set the expectation and the systems in place and hold people accountable. I have not done that properly, but I look at how small our system is. We look at, hey, these are some of our systems, or communication-wise, this is what we need to do. And if you fall short of it, we're going to coach you harder, but we have to follow this for the good of the brand, for the good of your neighbor. So I would say that's probably the most important part. Secondary to that, and probably at the same level, it's having a really clear vision of what you want the brand and your franchisees to be now and in, say, 2 years, right? The world, always talk about a 5-year plan, but the world changes so fast these days that you look over the next couple of years, how do you want your brand to look? How do you want it to feel? And what do you need to put in place to get there? And I think if you have that clarity, you want to grow your brand and sell it for X amount of dollars. You want to grow your brand and have it be your, mailbox money royalties down the road. If you're very clear on what you want, you will put things in place, right? They always say build it like you're going to sell it, because you document things. You put systems in place. You make it shiny and pretty. You follow through on the shiny and pretty, so that whether you want to sell it or whether you want to keep it forever, you're in that position, right? But I think that's really, really important, between the accountability side from the beginning. Otherwise, you have to slowly put fences in place, which we're starting to do, because that was a miss. But that would be if I could tell myself now that a number of years ago, I would have followed that more closely. But the vision part is very important as well. What's the end goal? Because then you will work towards that end goal.
I love it. It's like the saying goes, it's, was it failing to plan is planning to fail, or something like that?
Yep.
So I absolutely love that. So Craig, I end all of our chats with something that I call the lightning round. Now, don't be afraid. It's very just fast, light, easy, breezy questions. So I'll throw the first one at you. What is your favorite tool or app that you cannot live without?
LinkedIn.
Okay. And what is your favorite book?
E-Myth, Gerber.
Nice. Who is the franchise founder or leader that you look up to most?
Brian Scudamore.
Okay. And last but not least, where can people find out more about you and your company?
That'd be great. I am on LinkedIn every day. So Craig, last name is spelled Jooste on LinkedIn. Localhandymangroup.com is our website. Local Handyman Group on YouTube, which we're just starting to leverage. And it's interesting, just a quick note, and I know this is lightning round, but we had a whopping, I think, 27 subscribers 3 days ago, and I think it's up to almost 200. So yes, we're not trending yet, but the goal is to leverage that more in presentations, videos, so that people really can kind of digest what the brand is. So YouTube, localhandymangroup.com, and on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, Craig, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I absolutely appreciate it. And you shared a ton of wisdom that I know our listeners are going to find valuable.
Well, if we can help someone not step on landmines that we've stepped on, then that's always a good thing. And I appreciate that from other folks that I talk to as well. So I'm always happy to have these chats. And yeah, it's been great chatting with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.